behind the mysterious song of the humpback whale. Coming up on Newton's Apple, we take a rare look at these great creatures. We also shed some light on the topic of sunspots. All this and a guest with no sense at all. Next on Newton's Apple.
Welcome to Newton's Apple. Newton's Apple is made possible by a grant from DuPont, makers of better things for better living. And also by public television stations and viewers like you. And now your host, science correspondent, David Heil.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to Newton's Apple, the show that answers your questions about science, technology, and the world around us. Our first question comes from Laura Shen of Rochester, Minnesota, who wants to know, how do researchers study whales in the wild? That's a real problem for scientists. Obviously, whales spend most of their time deep underwater, making them invisible to those of us who are better adapted to be on the surface. So to answer Laura's question, field reporter Peggy Knapp and I both traveled to the big island of Hawaii. There we joined scientists who study the behavior of gigantic humpback whales. Evolved from land animals, whales aren't related to fish at all. They're mammals returned to the sea. These animals, once thought to be sea monsters, are actually highly intelligent, playful creatures. The humpback whale is named for the way it arches its back high above the surface of the water before diving. By no means the largest whale in the sea, still, it's the size of a bus and weighs up to 50 tons. They thrive in the deepest oceans, making them difficult to study. But some of the most important humpback research takes place on the surface of the water. I went out with Dan McSweeney, biologist with the West Coast Whale Research Foundation, to tackle the problem he faces every day. How do you find an animal in an area as large as the Pacific Ocean? We headed for an area where a pair of humpbacks had been sighted about an hour before, and then we waited, knowing they'd have to surface to breathe, and hoping we'd be lucky enough to catch even a glimpse of them. All right, right there, right there, look at that. Okay, so you just get the spout, the blow first.
And then you get the back and the roll.
They keep spouting, see, they just each time.
2, 3, maybe 4 times, and they'll get enough oxygen, and then they'll hold that last one, and we'll see here in just a moment. They'll arch, and then the rest.
So they have got to clear out all that carbon dioxide, get enough oxygen, and then they're going to go down. Oh, okay, look at there comes the tail.
There goes the
right
first
here.
one.
Wow.
Dan is researching the effects the whaling industry has had on the humpback population both in Hawaii and Alaska. So far, their numbers are increasing slowly, but there's still no guarantee they'll survive. Dan collects his data by photographing and tracking individual whales. Humpbacks winter here in Hawaii, where they mate and give birth, but don't eat at all. Then they migrate to Alaska, where they feed and socialize during the summer months. And Dan migrates with them.
Alaska to feed. Now, why is it that they're feeding up there and not here?
Well, there really aren't the kinds of fish blooms and prey blooms going off in our warm tropical waters that you get up in those cold nutrient.
Much richer as a food source.
Exactly. So they go up there and gorge themselves for 4 to 6 months, add a bunch of body weight, and then make this migration down to the breeding areas.
Now, these are baleen whales, so when you say gorge, you are serious about that. They're just opening their mouth wide, and then what happens when they bring the food in?
Baleen is this bristle-like material that hangs down from the whale's upper jaw that they use to strain the food out of the water with.
So no teeth.
No
All they have is just this comb-like hair material hanging down. All right, and how's that work?
Well, essentially what they do is they find whatever prey they're targeting and they engulf it, taking in 800 to 1,000 gallons of water in their mouth, and then
all the fish that come with it.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And then those muscles that line that distended mouth begin to constrict, forcing that water out through the baleen, trapping the food on the inside.
The varied ways in which humpbacks feed are different from those of other whales. They actually use tools. For instance, they make bubble nets by blowing a circle of bubbles around a school of fish. Or they flick water with their tails to concentrate groups of prey.
No response.
The whales were moving slowly underwater and in no particular direction, so we spent a lot of time anxiously waiting and wondering where our pair might surface again.
I guess if you have to wait for something to come back, this isn't too bad of a place to do it, huh?
Oh, I could think of a lot worse places, sure. Yeah, nice warm 78-degree weather and 100-foot visibility in the water. It's hard to beat. If there's anything that attests to the intelligence of these animals, it might be their selection of places to winter. Whale's up.
Oh, right close. Wow.
Okay, that was 7 minutes. So what we'll do is we'll see if we can get a picture of its tail. Now, the undersides of these whales' tails are how we tell them apart from each other. And the pigmentations will range from pure white to pure black with all kinds of variations in between. Here we go. Here goes the tail.
Like a fingerprint, the markings on the underside of a humpback's fluke are distinct enough to make it possible to identify individual whales. To help him make sense out of the 20 to 30,000 tail photos Dan takes during the year, he uses a computer. 5,000 images of whale flukes are stored on his laser disc, shot by researchers all over the Pacific. Dan enters a description of the underside of the tail into the computer, and the next step is to find out if this whale has ever been identified before. The computer displays flukes that are most like the description Dan's entered. In this case, we're watching for a tail with these two distinguishing spots.
Oh, wait a minute.
And she'd been sighted before. In fact, the amount of information already entered into the database about this particular whale spanned almost a decade.
We've called this whale the two-spot female for obvious reasons, and we've seen her up in the feeding areas in Alaska in 7 of the 9 years I've been going up there. She's had 4 calves during that period of time. She's been to Hawaii in 2 winters that we know of, and we estimate her age probably to be, 20 to 30 years.
You have really been on this lady's tail, so to speak, huh? Yes. You know a lot about her, and all that's entered into the computer.
All of it's in the computer, and then every time we re-sight her, that information gets logged in as well.
And any researcher
Collecting these photographs involves hours of time on the water, but our patience finally paid off. By an incredible stroke of luck, we found a group of humpbacks exhibiting rarely photographed surface-active behavior, where the whales don't make deep dives, but swim along the surface of the water. In this case, it was a chase that began with a cow and her calf. And the primary escort, which is a male who often stays with the cow and calf waiting for a chance to mate with the female. The pod traveled for over an hour, changing directions several times, as more and more whales joined the pursuit. As you might imagine, it can be dangerous for the whales involved. 5 50-ton humpbacks plowing through the water at 20 miles per hour, physically competing to reach the cow first. The animals barreled into each other throughout the race and displayed other territorial behaviors, like this trail of bubbles blown across the path of an oncoming male as warning to stay clear. As the long chase came to an end, the calf caught a ride on his mother's back. The resting humpbacks were soon joined by a pod of pilot whales, whose smaller size made them excellent playmates for the humpback calf. It was a fascinating day on the water, and I felt privileged to spend time with these endangered animals.
Dan, they've practically been trained to do that for you. That's perfect.
I wish that were true.
But Dan isn't the only biologist in this area working to protect the humpbacks. Field reporter Peggy Knapp joined a group of researchers studying whales several miles away.
Fluke, dive.
Ready for Mark whenever you want it, all dark flukes.
These students are studying marine mammals on a high point of land overlooking the water. Beth Matthews teaches the course at the School for Field Studies on the Big Island of Hawaii. Using a surveyor's instrument called a theodolite, a telescope, and binoculars, each student plays a part in monitoring boat traffic and whale behavior.
Oh yeah, it's a little calf. Okay, ready for Mark on eye, calf.
It's referred to as land-based tracking. Using respiration rate as an indication of stress level, Beth and the students are studying whether or not whales behave differently around boats in this area, and if so, how boats can minimize how they affect whales.
Okay.
They were also in close contact with another group of students offshore who were trying to find whales that might be singing. Beth showed me how this is done with an underwater microphone called a hydrophone. This instrument allows you to listen to and record the unmistakable song of the humpback whale.
Pretty stable.
Beth is gathering data for researchers who, with very sophisticated equipment, will attempt to analyze the song. As with Dan's research, the first rather time-consuming process is to find a whale out here. You drop the hydrophone over the side of the boat in different locations and listen until you hear a faint singer. And then you try to guess where he is.
No. Oh wait, one real distant, very faint song. Yeah, okay, I can hear one. Yeah, just very, very faintly. So that means that there's somebody out there singing, but they're probably pretty far away, and we have to just arbitrarily choose a direction and hope that we're lucky. So do you want to be the person with that responsibility today?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
North?
Okay, great.
Okay.
We'll try it.
So, north it was.
Oh, that's much better than before.
Wow, listen to
Yeah,
that.
that's great. Hey, way to go. Good choice.
North. Why are they singing? Do we know?
We don't know exactly why, but there are several theories about it, and it most likely has something to do with the male-male interactions. It's males that sing, and so they're probably either possibly assessing dominance, which is one theory, and the other theory is that it might be a way to attract females, a message to a female that says, hey, I'm a good male, you probably want to mate with me, or something like that.
What's happening underwater? What do they look like when they sing?
Oh, it's really neat. The males sing with their heads down about 45 degrees below their flukes, and they barely move at all. There's just a little bit of a forward motion, and they sometimes move their pec flippers a little bit, but it's basically hovering there, almost mesmerized.
Beth and her students are able to map out songs using symbols that actually look like the sounds you hear. And if you were to map out several songs on any one day in Hawaii, you'd find that every humpback is singing the exact same very complex song. And that song changes over the season. The units and themes within the song change. And all of the humpbacks memorize and sing that new song. But how do they do it? One of the latest discoveries is that there are sounds within the humpback song which actually appear to rhyme.
Preceding theme. So it seems that they might use the rhyme, like we do in poetry, to remember to remind themselves of what's coming up. It's a lot easier to remember a poem than it is to memorize a whole paragraph of prose, and perhaps it's the same thing happening in whale. So that's a real neat thing that they've just sort of unfolded for us.
Whale sonnets.
Yeah.
Do you find it hard not to read an emotional content into those songs? Because the sounds that I'm hearing...
It is. It really is. Especially if you get a chance to get in the water with them and you really feel that low sound, and just the way it reverberates in your lungs is so incredible that you have to feel that there's something really important happening there. You know, there has to be something going on, some purpose for that song. Otherwise, it's hard to imagine why they would spend so much time putting out so many incredible noises.
Could I hear?
Yeah, I think you'll be able to hear it a lot better with these headphones. Isn't that great?
What an amazing sound. There has to be some importance to this. I mean, there has to be some sort of communication of some kind going on. It's the song of intelligent, gentle animals with a language and social orders so complex, we're just beginning to understand them. They've lived on this earth for 50 million years, but are now in danger of dying out entirely. Hopefully, our increased awareness, combined with continued scientific study, will ensure that humpbacks and all whales will remain among our most precious of natural resources.
More party trivia. Fascinating fact number 519, fleas. Fleas could outperform our best Olympic athletes. A flea's legs are so strong that it can leap 80 times its height or 150 times its length in a single jump. With the same strength, a human could jump 400 feet high or cover 300 yards without touching the ground.
Back in the audience now with a question from... Excuse me. Excuse me. Didn't you have a question?
Oh, yes, David. I'm Dale Fine.
Hi, Dale.
And I've been getting a lot of static from my favorite AM radio station.
Okay.
I've heard that sunspots may have something to do with that. Can you help me?
Maybe we can. Here to help us with that question is Dr. Larry Rudnick, astronomer from the University of Minnesota.
Good to see you again, Larry.
Hi, David.
All right, let's start with the sunspots. What are they?
Well, here are some sunspots. Sunspots are dark regions on the sun. We see them with a cycle time of roughly every approximately 11 years or so. We see large numbers of sunspots, and then they'll fade away. Each sunspot may last for a few days or maybe even weeks or months.
How can we have this dark spot in the middle of a very bright sun?
Yeah, they're dark because they're cool. They're only about 6,500 degrees Fahrenheit or so.
You call that cool?
Well, yeah. Compared to the rest of the sun, which is about 10,000 degrees, they're cooler, and so they're not as bright, and they look dark against the surface.
Then how can we have just little spots of cooler area in the middle of this very hot mass?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and the answer is that the sunspots have very strong magnetic fields that help keep them cool. But to see how that comes about, I need to show you something, so let's take a look over here.
All right, let's. Now, Larry, does the sun have a magnetic field just like the Earth?
Well, the sun does have a magnetic field, but it's not like the Earth's. We're looking at the sun here during part of its 11-year cycle. In fact, we're looking here at what would be called the minimum activity part of its cycle. And the magnetic fields are weak, and they're randomly oriented all over the surface.
So we don't see any sunspots now.
And that's why we don't see any sunspots. But there's a lot of action that's going on beneath the surface of the sun. The heat from the center of the sun is causing convection, just like you would get when you boil water on your stove.
So all the matter of the sun is really being boiled over and over again here.
Yes, and that's carrying the magnetic field with it because the magnetic field is trapped in that material and it gets twisted and stretched and distorted, and that helps strengthen the magnetic field. And there's one other thing that's going on that's important, and that is the sun is rotating on an average of about once every 27 days, except the equator is rotating faster than the poles.
This must really mess up the magnetic field.
It does, and after about 5 years of all this churning and stretching and things, this is what we get.
Oh, there's the
later in the
sunspots.
cycle. Right.
So, and this is halfway through that 11-year cycle.
That's right, and this would be sunspot maximum, and the lines that you can see here are the lines as we believe they are deep in the convection zone beneath the surface of the sun.
The magnetic force lines.
But in order to see what's going on with the sunspots, why don't you take some of those nails I've got there and sprinkle them on the surface.
Okay, just right over top of the sunspots.
Yep.
Huh? Just drop some of these right over.
Now, what kind of pattern are you seeing there as you do it?
Well, it reminds me just of a bar magnet with like a north and a south pole.
That's exactly what it is. Most sunspots occur with strong pairs like that, one of them being a north pole and one of them being a south pole.
Now, how about the nails that are sticking straight up out of here? Does that imply that this is a full three-dimensional force?
Yeah, in fact, that's exactly what happens. These magnetic field lines that are underneath the sun become buoyant, and they rise up in the solar atmosphere, and finally they poke through the surface. And where they poke through is where we get these sunspots and these strong concentrations of field.
Great. Larry, what does this have to do, though, with the radio reception that Dale was having trouble with?
Right, okay. Well, these sunspots are just one indicator of a lot of activity that's going on in the sun. In fact, if you look over here, you'll see that sunspot regions are very complex regions. In fact, we call this an active region, which is made up of a couple of sunspots, a lot of material that's moving around.
This is a very magnified view of the surface of the sun, actually.
That's right. Now, every once in a while, look at that, okay?
Energy gets released from these regions from the stored up energy in the magnetic field. Whoa. And material gets shot out into space. These are called flares, giant releases of energy. Now that flame, of course, doesn't reach us here at Earth, but what is it that actually reaches us here that interferes with the radio? Well, some of those particles actually do make it to the Earth, and the radiation makes it to the Earth. Both of those things will affect the magnetic field of the Earth, and they and other storms in the sun will also affect our ionosphere, the charged layer in our atmosphere that Dale wants his radio waves to bounce off of to get good reception. This is fascinating. Is there any way for a casual viewer to see sunspots, actually? Sure. I'll show you how. Come on over here. Okay. This is it? This is it. Just looks like binoculars. A pair of binoculars, and we're going to use these binoculars to take a look at the spots on the sun. Wait a minute. That is not safe at all, to look at the sun through a pair of binoculars? We're going to look at the sun, but not through the binoculars. I should hope not. That would be very dangerous. Yeah. We're going to use the binoculars, though, to make an image of the sun onto a piece of cardboard. Larry, we don't have a sunroof here in the studio. Oh, we'll get one. Why don't you stand back here with a screen? What I've got is set up as a studio lamp down there, and it's going to shine through the binoculars. I've got a piece of cardboard here with a couple holes in it just to make a shadow. We're actually getting an image right here on the card. And that's the image of the lens of our studio light. So if this was the sun, we would see the actual sun's image on this card. Right, and you can see my own little sunspot on there. The Newton's apple? Yeah, that's it. Cute, Larry. I've got one more question for you. Okay. Just, when I was looking at those solar flares, all I could think of was all those particles bombarding us on the Earth. Right. Now, it's obviously affecting radio reception. We talked about that. What else might it affect? There's a number of things that it affects. One thing it does is it heats our atmosphere and makes it expand a little bit, which can affect satellites, which are in orbit.
It's also a possible danger to astronauts when these high-energy particles
If they're
come
out in
towards
space.
the Earth.
No spacewalks during solar flares,
Right.
huh?
And it also brings us the aurora, the very pretty northern lights, the flares, and the other storms that we see on the sun.
Larry, great answer for sunspots and clearing up the fuzz on the radio here. We'll have more in just a minute. If you have a science question you'd like answered by Newton's Apple, write us. Send your question to Newton's Apple, Box 1983, St. Paul, Minnesota, 55111. Remember, our show depends on your questions.
What will they think of next? Imagine a store with a brain. No more push carts, price tags, or produce prodding. It's strictly hands-off here. Keys and flashes will do the trick. Just insert the key in the hole marking the item you wish. A single flash is a single purchase.
If you desire to purchase one article here, for instance, at 18 cents, insert this key in the hole. Now watch it light. That represents a purchase of one. Now let's say we want 3 articles. That's 2. Now when the light lights the 3rd time, that means you've purchased 3 of that particular article.
As you shop, your selections are registered in the electric brain. All done? The master plug releases the order to the bag boys. Watch out for those eggs. Some things never change. Say, if this brain's so smart, how come it doesn't deliver?
The early French settlers called our next guest the child of the devil, but Hollywood transformed it into the hopeless romantic, Pepe Le Pew. It's a skunk, and here to introduce us is naturalist Nancy Gibson. Okay, Nancy, first, most obvious question, are we safe?
Do you think I'm that dumb?
No, you're not that dumb.
I would not be holding an animal.
Okay, so this skunk has been descented.
Yes, it certainly has.
What's its name?
This is Flower. This
Flower.
is a female,
What
right?
an appropriate name for a skunk.
Yes,
a
Bambi,
descented skunk.
A descented skunk. And she's from the Cincinnati Zoo in Ohio. And she's about 5 months old.
Really? So she's a young one.
Right.
Well, it's
But
only fair to be cautious.
I-
I mean, let's
I
face
agree,
it, as kids,
and
we
even-
all grew up, we were told, look out for anything
Right.
dark with a white stripe down its back.
Well, that's a great advertisement. In fact, that's a great advertisement for predators, too. They learn that this animal can give off that kind of chemical warfare.
I fortunately have never been sprayed, but I've known dogs and cats that have been.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
it like?
They're very accurate with their spray, and they can spray up to 9 feet.
Up to 9 feet?
Yeah, and they always
With
try to aim for the
accuracy.
eyes,
Hmm.
and it's a really bad irritant.
Could it
in the eye.
blind you?
I'm told smaller animals that can blind them.
Just blind them
yeah,
altogether.
But
Now, I have run across skunks without being sprayed
Yeah.
while jogging, like early in the morning or late at night. Is that when they're active?
they are nocturnal.
Okay, so
Basically
all night
nocturnal.
long. I don't
All
want to
night
jog
long,
at night.
Right.
That's fair.
And that's when they're looking for their food. They're omnivores, and they eat a variety of food. They eat small mammals, small birds, even fruit and insects.
Now, who would try to eat a skunk? I
Well-
mean, in their right mind, what animal would go after a skunk?
Well, the red foxes and coyotes and bobcats probably try once,
Okay.
but they learn.
Uh-huh.
But their best predator is the great horned owl.
Really? Now,
Yeah.
they're not bothered by the odor.
No, and great horned owls and birds of prey don't have a good sense of smell anyway, so that's
So
probably
even though they
good.
get the spray on their feathers, they'll
Right,
go after
right.
skunks time and again.
They don't smell
Watch
them.
out, Flower.
Right.
So, where do skunks spend their daytime?
Well, they're inactive during the day, so they go into burrows during the day.
Uh-huh.
And they're also inactive during the winter months, for several months during the year, depending upon their climate.
Do they actually hibernate?
They don't hibernate.
They don't hibernate.
But they go into a period of inactivity where they don't eat at all. And actually, they'll actually den up with several other
Oh,
skunks.
so they're social.
Only
I
at
guess,
that
yeah,
time.
you-
Basically, they're
a
solitary, except
skunk
for that
could hang
time.
around only with another skunk.
Right,
huh?
that's true.
Now, where do they raise their young?
Well, after they go through this period of inactivity, they will, the females come out, get pregnant, and February, March, have their young in April, and then they'll have them in a hollow log or some sort of burrow. And about 7 weeks of age, they'll bring them out, and the little ones will start following around.
Skunk parade, huh?
Yes, skunk parade. They'll have On an average, 4 to 5 young, but they can have up to 10 young.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Now, little skunks have got to be awful cute. I mean, Flower's a real cutie.
Yeah,
Do they make good pets?
No.
They don't
There's a
make
real
pets.
good reason for that, and that is that they are the main carrier of rabies, especially in the Midwestern regions.
So you wouldn't know if your pet skunk had rabies or
Right,
not,
because they're
would you?
asymptomatic. They are a carrier of rabies, and many times it takes many months for the rabies to show up.
What would stimulate the rabies to show themselves?
Well, periods of stress will do it. When the female is going through that period of inactivity in the winter, through the time she's weaned her young, she'll lose up to 50% of her body weight, and that creates a lot of stress. And females are 15 times more likely than males to develop the virus.
Even though it isn't nighttime here, Flower is very active.
Yes, she is. I'm glad.
I've got another question for you. It's an
Yes.
obvious one, but I have to ask it. We see a lot of Flower's relatives, unfortunately, skunks, along the highways.
Right.
They've been hit by cars.
Yes.
Why is that? Is there a particular reason?
Well, I think for generations, skunks have learned to turn, flip their tail, and spray, and that just doesn't work well against cars or
doesn't stop
semis.
a car, does it?
Right.
Ooh,
So
this
she
is
just
raising
flipped her
you're
tail
sure
right
we're
there.
safe.
Yeah, we're safe. And it doesn't work against cars. Also, I think there's a high density of skunks. They're not an endangered species. And also, they're looking along the roadside for grubs and other insects.
And so they're just in the wrong spot at the wrong time.
You got it.
Well, fortunately, Flower is safe in the Cincinnati Zoo.
She certainly
That's
is.
good news. Nancy, thanks so much for bringing Flower in today.
You're
We're all
welcome.
out of time. We'll see you next time on Newton's Apple.
Newton's Apple is made possible by a grant from DuPont, supporting an interest in science today, so that future generations may continue to enjoy better things for better living, and also by the financial support of viewers like you.
This is PBS.